The shuttle was falling apart around him. Staff Sergeant Danny Cole gripped the controls with both hands as alarms screamed in his ears. Red lights flashed across every screen. The asteroid had come out of nowhere, punching through the left side of his small patrol vessel like a fist through wet paper. Now he was spinning through the atmosphere of a planet he had never seen before, heading toward a surface covered in glowing forests and mountains made of crystal. Danny was 32 years old. He had survived 3 wars, 2 crash landings, and 1 very bad marriage. He was not ready to die on some random rock in the middle of nowhere. He pulled hard on the controls, trying to level out the shuttle. The engines coughed and sputtered. Smoke filled the cockpit. Through the cracked windshield, he could see the ground rushing up to meet him. Trees that glowed blue and purple stretched in every direction. A river of silver water cut through the landscape like a shining ribbon dot. It was beautiful. It was also about to kill him. Danny braced himself and whispered a prayer to whatever god might be listening. The shuttle hit the ground at an angle, tearing through the forest like a wounded animal. Trees snapped and shattered. Metal screamed against rock. Danny was thrown against his safety harness so hard that the straps cut into his chest. Then everything went black. When he opened his eyes again, the world was quiet. The alarms had stopped. The engines were dead. Danny hung sideways in his seat, blood dripping from a cut on his forehead. His whole body ached like he had been beaten with hammers. But he was alive. He released his harness and fell awkwardly to the floor of the cockpit, which was now tilted at a strange angle. Pain shot through his left ankle. Probably sprained, maybe broken. He did not have time to worry about it. The shuttle was filling with smoke, and he needed to get out before something exploded. Danny grabbed his emergency pack and his rifle, then kicked open the side hatch. Fresh air rushed in, sweet and cool. He pulled himself out of the wreckage and collapsed onto soft ground covered in moss that glowed faintly green. For a long moment, he just lay there, breathing. Above him, 3 moons hung in a purple sky. Stars twinkled between clouds that shimmered like oil on water. The forest around him hummed with strange sounds, clicks and whistles and something that sounded almost like singing. Danny sat up slowly and looked around. His shuttle was completely destroyed. The communication array was gone, shattered into pieces scattered across the crash site. The engines were on fire. Even if he had the tools to fix it, there was nothing left to fix. He was stranded. Danny checked his supplies. He had water for 3 days, food for 5, a medical kit, his rifle with 200 rounds, and a combat knife. Not much for long-term survival on an alien world. He would need to find more resources and fast. But first, he needed to figure out where he was. He pulled out his portable scanner and activated it. The device hummed as it searched for any signals, any sign of civilization. Nothing. The planet was not in any database he had access to. It was uncharted, unknown, and apparently empty of intelligent life. Or so he thought. Danny did not see them coming. One moment he was alone, studying his scanner. The next moment, he was surrounded by creatures unlike anything he had ever seen. They were tall, almost 7 feet, with bodies that looked like a mix between insects and angels. Their skin was hard and shiny, like armor made of pearl. They had 4 arms and 2 legs. Wings folded against their backs caught the light and shimmered with rainbow colors. Their faces were strange and beautiful, with large eyes that glowed soft gold and mouths that did not seem made for human speech. There were at least 20 of them, all carrying weapons that looked like spears made of crystal. Danny raised his rifle on instinct, but he knew it was pointless. He was outnumbered, injured, and alone. If they wanted him dead, he would be dead. One of the creatures stepped forward. It was slightly smaller than the others, wearing some kind of decorated collar around its neck. It made a series of clicking sounds, and a moment later, Danny heard words form in his mind. "You are not supposed to be here." Danny blinked. They were telepathic. Of course they were. Nothing about this day was going to be simple. He lowered his rifle slowly, showing his open hands. He was a soldier. He knew when to fight and when to talk. "I crashed," he thought, hoping they could hear him. "My ship was damaged. I did not mean to come here." The creature studied him with those golden eyes. Danny felt like he was being examined from the inside out, like the alien could see his memories and his fears and everything he had ever done. "You are human," the voice said in his mind. "Your kind is known to us. Young, violent, curious." Danny shrugged. "We have our good days and our bad days." The alien made a sound that might have been laughter. Then it turned and clicked at the others. They moved forward and grabbed Danny by the arms, not roughly, but firmly enough that he knew he had no choice in what came next. They marched him through the glowing forest for what felt like hours. Danny's ankle screamed with every step, but he did not complain. He kept his eyes open, memorizing the path, noting landmarks. If he ever got a chance to escape, he would need to know the way back to his crashed shuttle. Eventually, they emerged from the forest into a clearing that took his breath away. A city rose before him. But it was not like any city he had ever seen. Towers of living crystal stretched toward the sky, connected by bridges that seemed to be made of solidified light. Gardens hung from every surface, filled with plants that glowed in a dozen different colors. Creatures flew between the buildings on wings that left trails of sparkles in the air. Thought it was the most beautiful thing Danny had ever seen. The aliens led him through the streets. Other creatures stopped to stare at him, whispering in their clicking language. Danny felt like an animal in a zoo, something strange and possibly dangerous. They brought him to the largest building in the center of the city, a palace made of crystal so clear it was almost invisible. Inside, the halls were lined with paintings and sculptures that showed the history of an ancient civilization. Danny saw images of wars fought long ago, of heroes and monsters, of ships that sailed between stars. Finally, they reached a great chamber at the heart of the palace. At the far end, sitting on a throne made of living flowers, was the most stunning creature Danny had ever seen. She was taller than the others, with a silver shell that gleamed like moonlight. Ancient symbols were carved into her armor, glowing faintly with inner light. Her eyes were not gold, but deep violet, and they held a wisdom that made Danny feel like a child standing before a very old teacher. This was their queen. She rose from her throne and floated down to where Danny stood, her wings carrying her as gently as a falling leaf. She circled him slowly, studying every detail of his battered body. Then she spoke, not in his mind, but out loud, in perfect English. "Tell me, human," she said, her voice like music made of bells. "How did you find your way to Valoria Prime?" Danny straightened his shoulders and looked the alien queen directly in her purple eyes. "Honestly, Your Majesty," he said, "I have absolutely no idea." The queen stared at him for a long moment. Then, to his complete surprise, she smiled. His adventure was just beginning. Danny spent the next 3 days as a guest of the Valorian Empire. Guest was perhaps too kind a word. He was not locked in a cell, but he was not free to leave either. Guards watched his door at all times. A young Valorian named Kira was assigned to serve as his guide and translator, following him everywhere he went. She was curious about him, asking endless questions about Earth and humans, and why they ate dead animals for food. Danny answered as best he could. He learned quickly that the Valorians were an old civilization, far older than humanity. They had traveled to stars when humans were still living in caves. They had fought wars that destroyed entire galaxies. And then, 10,000 years ago, they had decided to stop. The Valorians had hidden their homeworld from the rest of the universe. They created shields that blocked all signals, all scans, all attempts to find them. They wanted nothing to do with the chaos of galactic politics. They wanted only peace, until Danny crashed his shuttle on their sacred ground. Queen Zelithara summoned him on the third day. Danny was brought to her private gardens, a place of impossible beauty where flowers sang and trees whispered secrets to each other. The Queen sat beside a pool of water that showed images of distant stars on its surface. Sit with me, human, she said. We must talk. Danny sat on the grass across from her. His ankle had healed quickly thanks to Valorian medicine. He felt stronger than he had in years. Your arrival has caused much debate among my council, the Queen said. Many believe you are a spy. Others think you are a scout for an invasion. Some want to execute you immediately. Danny kept his face calm. And what do you believe, Your Majesty? The Queen looked at him with those deep purple eyes. I believe you are exactly what you claim to be. A lost soldier who crashed his ship by accident. Nothing more, nothing less. So what happens now? The Queen was silent for a moment. Then she said, I am trying to find a way to send you home without revealing the location of our world. It is not easy. Your ship is beyond repair, and our technology is not compatible with human systems. But I am working on a solution. Danny nodded. I appreciate that. And I'm sorry for all the trouble I have caused. The Queen smiled sadly. You did not ask to crash here, Danny Cole. The universe has strange ways of bringing people together. Before Danny could respond, a Valorian guard came running into the garden. He was breathing hard, his wings twitching with fear. He spoke rapidly in the clicking language of his people. The Queen rose to her feet, her expression changing from calm to alarmed in an instant. What is it? Danny asked. What is happening? The Queen turned to him, and for the first time, he saw fear in her ancient eyes. Your crash was detected, she said. Someone followed the signal to our world. Danny felt his stomach drop. Who? Come, the Queen said. See for yourself. She led him to the highest tower of the palace, a room filled with screens and holographic displays. Valorian technicians worked frantically at stations, their clicks and whistles filling the air with panic. On the main screen, Danny saw them. Ships. Hundreds of ships. They filled the space around the planet like a swarm of angry insects. They were ugly vessels, all sharp angles and dark metal, covered in weapons and scars from countless battles. Danny recognized the design immediately. His blood went cold. Korthax, he whispered. The Queen looked at him. You know them? Danny nodded slowly. Every human soldier knew the Korthax. They were monsters, a species that lived only for war and conquest. They had destroyed dozens of civilizations across 3 galaxies. They took what they wanted and killed anyone who stood in their way. We have been fighting them for 50 years, Danny said. They are the worst enemy humanity has ever faced. The main screen flickered, and a face appeared. It was a Korthax, a creature that looked like a demon made of muscle and armor. His skin was dark red, covered in ritual scars. His eyes were black and empty. When he smiled, he showed rows of teeth like broken glass. People of Valoria, the creature spoke. I am High Commander Vex of the Korthax Dominion. Your hiding place has been found. Your world now belongs to us. Danny watched as the Valorians around him trembled. These were scientists and artists, not warriors. They had not seen war in 10,000 years. They had no idea what was about to happen to them. You will surrender immediately, Vex continued. All your technology, all your resources, all your people will serve the Dominion. Resist, and you will be destroyed. You have 1 rotation of your planet to decide. The screen went dark. The room exploded into chaos. Valorians shouted and argued. Some wept. Others stared at the screens in silent shock. Queen Zelithara stood in the middle of it all, Her face pale, but her posture straight. Danny pushed through the crowd to reach her. "Your Majesty," he said, "you cannot surrender." The Queen looked at him. "What choice do I have? My people have no weapons, no fleet, no experience in war. If we fight, we die. If you surrender, you die anyway," Danny said. "The Korthax do not take prisoners. They take slaves. They will work your people to death in their mines and factories. They will strip your world bare and leave nothing behind but ash." The Queen closed her eyes. "Then we are doomed either way." Danny grabbed her arm, something that made every guard in the room reach for their weapons. He did not care. "No," he said. "There is another option." The Queen opened her eyes. "What option?" Danny took a deep breath. "Let me contact my people. Let me call for help." The Queen stared at him. "Your people? You want to bring more outsiders to our world?" "The Korthax are already here," Danny said. "The secret of your location is already lost. But my people, humanity, we've been fighting the Korthax for decades. We know how they think. We know how they fight. And we do not leave people behind." The Queen was silent for a long moment. Around them, the chaos continued as Valorians argued about what to do. Finally, she spoke. "Why would humanity fight for us?" she asked. "We are strangers. We have nothing to offer you. Why would your people risk war for a world they have never seen?" Danny smiled, a tired smile but a real one, "Because that is what humans do," he said. "When someone needs help, we help. It does not matter if we know them or not. It does not matter if it makes sense. We see people in trouble, and we do something about it. It is stupid and dangerous, and it gets us killed more often than we would like. But it is who we are." The Queen studied his face for a long time. "You truly believe your people will come?" Danny nodded. "I know they will." Queen Zelithara turned to look at the screens showing the Korthax fleet. Those hundreds of warships waiting to destroy everything she had sworn to protect. Then she made her decision. "Follow me," she said to Danny. "I will take you to our communication array. Let us see if humanity is as brave as you claim." Danny followed her out of the chaos, hope burning in his chest for the first time since the Korthax appeared. He prayed his faith in his own species was not misplaced. The Valorian communication array was unlike anything Danny had ever seen. It sat in a cavern deep beneath the palace, a massive structure made of living crystal that pulsed with soft light. Thousands of wires that looked like glowing vines connected it to machines Danny could not even begin to understand. The whole system hummed with power, a sound that Danny felt in his bones. "This is the voice of Valoria," Queen Zelithara explained. "We built it long ago to speak with other civilizations. We have not used it in 10,000 years." Danny walked around the array, studying its components. "Can it reach human space?" The Queen nodded. "It can reach anywhere in the known universe. The question is whether anyone will listen." Danny sat down at what looked like a control station. A Valorian technician nervously adjusted some settings, making the crystal pulse brighter. The air filled with static, then cleared. Danny took a deep breath and began speaking. "This is Staff Sergeant Danny Cole of the United Stellar Command, broadcasting on all emergency frequencies. I am stranded on an uncharted planet called Valoria Prime. The Korthax Dominion has arrived with a fleet of over 200 warships. They intend to invade and enslave the native population. I am requesting immediate assistance. I repeat, this is an emergency call for help. Coordinates are being transmitted now." He sent the message and waited. Minutes passed. The Queen stood beside him, her wings folded tight against her back. The technicians watched their screens with wide eyes. Then, through the static, a voice came through. "Danny? Danny Cole? Is that you crazy son of a gun?" Danny laughed, a sound of pure relief. Laura? Laura Bennett. The transmission cleared, and a face appeared on the screen. She was a woman in her 40s, with short gray hair and sharp brown eyes. She wore the uniform of a USC captain, and she was grinning. "I thought you were dead," she said. "Your patrol ship disappeared 3 weeks ago. We searched for days before we gave up. I crashed on an alien planet," Danny said. "Long story. The short version is that the Korthax followed my signal, and now they are about to invade a peaceful civilization that has never hurt anyone. I need help, Laura. I need it fast." Captain Bennett's smile faded. She looked at something off-screen, probably her tactical display. 200 warships? She asked. "At least," Danny said. "Maybe more." The captain was silent for a moment. Then she looked directly at Danny. "I have 6 ships," she said. "The Defiant and 5 support vessels. We cannot take on 200 Korthax warships alone." Danny felt his hope begin to fade. "I understand. I should not have asked. I just thought maybe—" Captain Bennett cut him off. "I said, we cannot do it alone," she said. "I did not say we would not come." Danny blinked. "What?" "I am sending out a call to every USC vessel in range," Captain Bennett said. "Every allied ship, every mercenary crew that owes us a favor, everyone who has ever wanted to punch the Korthax in the face. I do not know how many will answer, but we will bring what we can." "Laura," Danny said, his voice thick with emotion, "this is not your fight. These people are strangers." Captain Bennett smiled again, but this time it was softer. "Danny, I have known you for 15 years. You do not call for help unless people really need it. And if the Korthax want this world, then we cannot let them have it. Simple as that." She leaned forward. "We will be there in 2 days. Hold the line until then." The transmission ended. Queen Zelithara stared at the blank screen. "Your people are coming?" she asked. "Just like that?" Danny nodded. "Just like that." The Queen shook her head slowly. "I do not understand. She could die for us. Her soldiers could die. And she does not even know who we are." Danny turned to face her. "That is the thing about humans, Your Majesty. We do not need to know who you are. We just need to know that you need help." The Queen was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, 2 days. The Korthax gave us 1 day to surrender. When we refuse, they will attack. Then we need to be ready," Danny said. "We need to give Captain Bennett time to arrive." The Queen looked at him with new respect in her eyes. "What do you suggest?" Danny thought about everything he had seen on Valoria Prime. The technology, the creatures, the incredible resources of this hidden world. He thought about his training, his experience, every battle he had ever fought. Then he smiled. "Your people may not be warriors," he said, "but you are scientists. You have technology we cannot even dream of. Let me show you how to use it." Over the next 20 hours, Danny worked harder than he had ever worked in his life. He gathered the best Valorian engineers and scientists and explained the basics of warfare. Defense, offense, tactics, strategy. They listened with wide eyes and quick minds, absorbing information like sponges. Together, they built weapons. The Valorians had organic shield technology that could stop almost any attack. Danny showed them how to extend it around the city, creating a protective bubble that would buy them precious time. The forests of Valoria Prime were filled with strange creatures, many of them dangerous. Danny worked with Valorian biologists to reprogram their behavior, turning them into defenders that would attack any Korthax who landed on the planet. The Crystal Mountains contained minerals that exploded when exposed to certain frequencies. Danny and the engineers created sonic bombs that could be triggered remotely, turning the landscape itself into a weapon. Through it all, Queen Zelithara was at his side. She worked alongside her people, getting her hands dirty, learning every system he taught them. She was not just a leader who gave orders. She was a queen who led by example. On the second morning, as the Korthax deadline passed and their fleet began moving toward the planet, Danny found himself standing on the palace balcony, watching Valorians prepare for a war they had never wanted. Kira, his young guide, stood beside him. "Are you afraid?" she asked. Danny nodded. "Yes. Only fools are not afraid of war. Will your captain really come?" Danny looked up at the sky, where Korthax ships were beginning to appear as small dots of darkness against the purple heavens. "She will come," he said. "I know her. She has never broken a promise in her life." Kira was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I have never fought before. I do not know if I can." Danny turned to her. "You can," he said. "When the time comes, when you see the people you love in danger, you will find strength you did not know you had. That is what war does to people. It shows them who they really are." Kira nodded slowly, though her wings still trembled. In the distance, the first Korthax landing ships began their descent. "It is time," Danny said. He picked up his rifle and walked toward the palace gates, where hundreds of Valorians waited with weapons they had only just learned to use. Behind them, the city they loved. Before them, an army that wanted to destroy everything. And somewhere in the stars above, help was coming. Danny just hoped it would arrive in time. The Korthax attacked at dawn. Danny watched from the front lines as the first wave of enemy landing ships descended through the clouds. There were dozens of them, each one carrying hundreds of soldiers. The sky turned dark with their shadows. "Here they come," he said into his communicator. "Everyone, hold your positions. Wait for my signal." Around him, Valorian defenders crouched behind barriers made of reinforced crystal. They held weapons they had never used before, facing an enemy they had never seen before. Most of them were shaking. Danny could not blame them. The Korthax ships landed just outside the city's shield barrier. Their ramps dropped and soldiers poured out like water from a broken dam. They were massive creatures, each one standing nearly 8 feet tall, covered in thick armor and carrying weapons that could cut through steel. High Commander Vex had sent his best troops first. He wanted to crush the Valorians quickly, to make an example of them. He was about to learn that he had made a mistake. The Korthax charged toward the shield barrier. They fired their weapons, sending beams of red light crashing against the organic shield. The barrier held, just as Danny had promised it would. Now, Danny ordered. The ground beneath the Korthax feet exploded. The sonic bombs Danny and the engineers had planted tore through the enemy lines. Crystal shards flew in every direction, cutting through armor like paper. The creatures in the forest were programmed by Valorian scientists swarmed out of the trees. Giant insects with razor-sharp legs, flying predators with talons that could tear through metal, plants that wrapped around soldiers and pulled them into the ground. The Korthax advance turned into chaos. Danny led a team of Valorian volunteers through a hidden tunnel that emerged behind enemy lines. They hit the Korthax supply ships before the enemy even knew they were there. Danny planted explosives on fuel tanks and ammunition stores. When they detonated, fireballs rose into the sky. The Korthax commander of the ground forces screamed orders into his communicator. "Regroup. Find the humans. Kill everything." But Danny and his team were already gone, slipping back into the tunnels like ghosts. The battle raged for hours. The Valorian shields held against bombardment from orbit. The traps and creatures Danny had prepared claimed hundreds of Korthax lives. But the enemy kept coming, wave after wave. More landing ships descending from the fleet above. By midday, the outer defenses were beginning to fail. Danny stood in the palace command center, watching the tactical display. Red dots representing Korthax forces were spreading across the map like a disease. Blue dots representing Valorian defenders were fewer with each passing minute. Queen Zelithara stood beside him, her armor now dented and scarred from fighting on the front lines herself. She had refused to stay safe in the palace. She had fought beside her people, using ancient weapons her ancestors had built but never used. "We cannot hold much longer," she said. "There are too many." Danny checked the time. "Captain Bennett should be here any minute," he said. "We just need to hold a little longer." As if in answer to his words, the sky lit up with new light. They looked up through the crystal dome of the command center and saw them. Ships. Human ships. Dozens of them, emerging from hyperspace like angels of death. The Defiant led the charge, Captain Bennett's battlecruiser flying straight at the Korthax, fleet with weapons blazing. But she had not come alone. Behind her came 47 more vessels. Human warships of every size and shape. Allied species Danny recognized from old battles. Even a few mercenary cruise-flying ships, covered in skull paintings and rude words. They had all answered the call. The space battle began. Danny watched as human missiles tore through Korthax cruisers. He saw enemy fighters explode in chains of fire. He heard Captain Bennett's voice come through the communication array, calm and confident. "Valoria Prime, this is Captain Bennett. The cavalry has arrived. Hold your positions. We are taking out their fleet." Danny grabbed his rifle and turned to Queen Zelithara. "Time for the counterattack," he said. "We pushed them back. Now." The Queen nodded. Her eyes were tired but fierce. "For Valoria," she said. "For everyone," Danny replied. They led the charge themselves. Danny ran through the streets of the Crystal City, firing at every Korthax soldier he saw. Valorian warriors flew above him, dropping explosives on enemy positions. The creatures from the forest attacked with renewed fury, sensing that the tide was turning. The Korthax began to retreat. For the first time in the battle, they were running away. Danny and his team pushed them all the way back to their landing zone. He watched as enemy soldiers scrambled onto whatever ships could still fly, desperate to escape the planet they had been so sure they would conquer. Then he heard a sound that froze his blood, a roar of engines, louder than anything else on the battlefield. Danny looked up and saw the Korthax flagship descending through the atmosphere. It was a monster of a ship, nearly a mile long, covered in weapons and armor. It was heading straight for the heart of the Valorian city. No. Danny whispered. High Commander Vex's voice came through every communication channel, filled with rage and madness. "If I cannot have this world, no one will. I will burn your precious city to ash. I will kill everyone on this miserable planet." The flagship was too big, too heavily armored. The Valorian shields could not stop it. The human fleet was too far away to intercept. It would reach the city in minutes. Danny watched the ship approach, his mind racing through options. There had to be something. There had to be a way. Then he saw it. A Valorian transport vessel, sitting abandoned at the edge of the landing zone. It was small, barely bigger than his crash shuttle. But it had engines. Powerful engines, designed to carry heavy cargo across the planet. Danny started running. Danny. Queen Zelithara screamed after him. "What are you doing?" He did not answer. He did not have time to explain. He reached the transport and climbed inside. The controls were strange, but Kira had taught him the basics during his first days on the planet. He powered up the engines and lifted off. The Valorian transport rose into the sky, heading straight for the Korthax flagship. Danny could hear Captain Bennett's voice on the radio, demanding to know what he was doing. He could hear Queen Zelithara begging him to turn back. He ignored them all. He flew directly at the flagship's main reactor section. Scans showed the weak point, a gap in the armor where the engines connected to the main body. If he could hit it hard enough, if he could cause the reactor to go critical, the Korthax flagship's weapons locked onto him. Beams of red light streaked past his transport. Missing by inches. Danny pushed the engines to maximum. At the last possible second. He activated the escape pod. The pod ejected from the transport, just as the small ship slammed into the flagship's reactor section. The engines exploded on impact, tearing through the gap in the armor. The effect was immediate. The Korthax flagship broke apart in the atmosphere. Fire and debris scattered in every direction, raining down on empty fields far from the city. High Commander Vex did not even have time to scream before his ship was consumed by the explosion he had meant for others. Danny's escape pod tumbled through the sky, spinning wildly. He hit his head on the ceiling, then the floor, then the wall. Alarms screamed. Systems failed. Then there was water. The pod splashed down in the silver river Danny had seen during his first crash on this world. It began to sink immediately, filling with cold water that rushed through cracks in the damaged hull. Danny struggled to open the hatch, but his arms were broken. His vision was fading. Darkness crept in at the edges of his sight. The last thing he heard before he lost consciousness was the sound of wings. Then everything went black. Danny woke up slowly. The first thing he noticed was that he was not dead. This surprised him more than it probably should have. The second thing he noticed was the ceiling above him. It was made of living crystal, pulsing with soft light that seemed to match the rhythm of his heartbeat. He was in a bed softer than anything he had ever slept on before, covered in blankets that felt like woven clouds. "You are awake." Danny turned his head and saw Queen Zelithara sitting in a chair beside his bed. She looked tired, but there was a warmth in her eyes that had not been there before. "How long was I out?" Danny asked. His voice came out rough and scratchy. 3 days, the Queen replied. "We pulled you from the river, just in time. Another minute, and you would have drowned." Danny tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. Pain shot through his entire body. He looked down at himself and saw bandages wrapped around his arms, his chest, his legs. "Your injuries were severe," the Queen continued. "Both arms were broken. Your ribs were cracked. You had internal bleeding and a serious concussion. Our healers worked around the clock to save you." Danny lay back against the pillows. "Your healers are good." The Queen smiled slightly. "Our technology is advanced, but even we have limits. You should have died. Danny Cole, the fact that you survived is nothing short of a miracle." Danny stared at the crystal ceiling. He remembered the flagship descending toward the city. He remembered flying the transport into its path. He remembered the explosion and the fall and the cold water filling his lungs. "Did it work?" he asked. "The flagship, did I stop it?" "Yes," the Queen said. "The ship was destroyed. High Commander Vex is dead. His fleet has retreated. Valoria Prime is safe." Danny closed his eyes and let out a long breath. "Good. That is good." They sat in silence for a while. Danny could hear sounds drifting in from outside, voices and music and something that sounded like celebration. "Your people are celebrating," Danny said. "They are." The Queen confirmed. "For the first time in 10,000 years, we fought for ourselves. We defended our home. They are proud." Danny opened his eyes and looked at her. "You should be proud too. You fought on the front lines. You led by example." The Queen looked down at her hands. "I did what was necessary, but I could not have done it without you. None of us could have." She stood up and walked to the window. Beyond the crystal glass, Danny could see the city, still standing, still beautiful. Human ships moved through the sky alongside Valorian transports. Soldiers from both species walked the streets together. "When you first crashed on our world," the Queen said, "I thought you were a curse. A bad omen that would bring destruction to everything we have built. And now?" Danny asked. "Now I believe you were a blessing." She turned to face him. "You showed my people that there is more to life than hiding. You showed them that peace is not just the absence of war. It is something that must be defended, fought for, earned. Danny shrugged, then winced at the pain. I just did what any human would do. No, the Queen said firmly. You did what very few beings in this universe would do. You risked everything for people you did not know. You almost died for strangers. That is not ordinary, Danny Cole. That is extraordinary. Before Danny could respond, the door opened. Captain Bennett walked in, her uniform dusty, but her smile wide. Wow, she said. Sleeping Beauty finally wakes up. Danny grinned despite his pain. Hello. Larva. Captain Bennett crossed the room and sat on the edge of his bed. You are an idiot, she said. Flying a transport into a flagship? What were you thinking? I was thinking that a lot of people were going to die if I did not do something, Danny replied. Captain Bennett shook her head. Same old Danny, always the hero. She reached into her pocket and pulled out something small and shiny. Danny recognized it immediately. His dog tags, lost during the crash and the battle. We found these in the wreckage of your shuttle, she said. Figured you might want them back. Danny took the tags and held them tightly. Thank you. Captain Bennett stood up. Get some rest. There's a lot happening, and you are going to want to be part of it. What is happening? Danny asked. The captain looked at Queen Zelithara, who nodded. Something wonderful, the Queen said. 2 weeks later, Danny stood in the great hall of the Valorian Palace. He was dressed in his formal uniform, cleaned and pressed and decorated with medals he was not sure he deserved. His injuries had healed thanks to Valorian medicine, though his left arm still ached when the weather changed. The hall was filled with people. Human officers and diplomats stood alongside Valorian nobles and scientists. Reporters from a dozen species recorded everything with floating cameras. It was the largest gathering the palace had ever seen. At the front of the hall, 2 tables had been set up. On one sat a document written in English. On the other, the same document in the Valorian language. Between them stood Queen Zelithara and Admiral Grace Kim, the highest-ranking human officer in the sector. We are gathered here today, Admiral Kim announced, to witness the signing of a historic treaty. For the first time in 10,000 years, the Valorian Empire will enter into a formal alliance with another species. And that species is humanity. Applause filled the hall. Admiral Kim continued. This alliance was born not from politics or strategy, but from something far more important. It was born from courage, from sacrifice, from a simple belief that when people need help, we should help them. She looked at Danny, who stood in the front row feeling deeply uncomfortable with all the attention. Staff Sergeant Danny Cole did not set out to change history, the Admiral said. He just crashed his ship on the wrong planet at the wrong time. But when he saw people in danger, he did not hesitate. He called for help. He fought beside strangers. He risked his life for beings he'd only known for days. The Admiral smiled. That is the human spirit at its finest. And it is why this alliance will be one of the strongest in the galaxy. Queen Zelithara stepped forward. For 10,000 years, my people believed that safety meant isolation. We hid from the universe, afraid of what we might find. Afraid of what might find us. She paused, her violet eyes sweeping across the crowd. We were wrong, she continued. True safety comes not from hiding, but from standing together, from trusting others, from being willing to fight for what matters. She turned to look at Danny. One human soldier showed us this truth. He crashed into our world and into our hearts. He taught us that courage is not the absence of fear. It is the willingness to act despite fear. It is helping others even when it costs you everything. The Queen picked up a pen made of crystal and signed the treaty. Admiral Kim did the same. The crowd erupted in cheers. Later that evening, Danny stood on the balcony of the palace, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and purple. Human and Valorian ships patrolled the heavens together, a sight that would have been unimaginable just weeks ago. Queen Zelithara joined him, her wings folding gracefully as she leaned against the railing. "You are quiet," she observed. Danny shrugged. "Just thinking." "About what?" "About how strange life is. A month ago, I was just a soldier on a routine patrol. Now I am part of galactic history." The Queen laughed softly. "You deserve every honor you have received, Danny Cole." "I am not so sure about that," Danny said. "I just did what felt right. That is exactly why you deserve them," the Queen replied. "You did not act for glory or reward. You acted because it was the right thing to do. That is true heroism." They stood in comfortable silence for a while, watching the stars come out one by one. "What will you do now?" the Queen asked. Danny thought about it. "I suppose I will go back to being a soldier. There are still battles to fight, people to protect. You will always be welcome here," the Queen said. "Valoria Prime is your home now, if you want it to be." Danny smiled. "Thank you, Your Majesty. That means more than you know." The Queen touched his shoulder with one of her 4 hands. "Call me Zelithara. I think we have moved past formalities." Danny laughed. "All right, Zelithara." They watched the night sky together. A human and an alien queen. 2 people who had become unlikely friends through fire and chaos and desperate hope. In the years that followed, the Human-Valorian alliance would become one of the most powerful forces in the galaxy. It would protect countless worlds and defeat threats that neither species could have faced alone. Historians would study the Battle of Valoria Prime for centuries, trying to understand how one crashed shuttle had changed the course of galactic history. But for Danny Cole, it was simpler than that. He had seen people in trouble. He had helped them. That was what humans did. And sometimes that was enough to change everything. The end.